Welcome, everybody, to the Jim Masters Show, Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. It's a pleasure to have you here watching from all around the world. We thank you very much for making us a part of your day. We're here in the New York area in the United States, and we appreciate all the great comments, the love and support for our Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. We are so honored and blessed to have an extraordinary guest joining us here on the program. You've seen her on television. You've seen her in the movies. And she is an extraordinary talent, legendary television and film actress extraordinaire. She's also a brilliant author, conservationist, and so much more. Stefanie Powers is joining us in just a second here in the program. I know everybody's been very excited about this. We are as well. We've always admired her extraordinary spirit, her passion for what she does and what she believes in, and of course, her extraordinary talent as well. When you think about the body of work of somebody like a Stefanie Powers, it's hard to put it all in, this amount of time that we have, because it just transcends decades of extraordinary art that she has provided for all of us. And we are so honored to have an opportunity to share some of it with you. And we're very excited to tell you about some other incredible work that she does. She began her career at age 15, dancing for famed Broadway choreographer Jerome Robbins, and she was put under contract to Columbia Pictures in the final years of the Hollywood star system. And while under contract, she appeared in 15 of the 31 motion pictures she had made, co-starring with screen legends such as John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara, Lana Turner, Ava Gardner, Cliff Robertson, Elliot Gould, Roger Moore, Donald Sutherland, Bing Crosby, Glenn Ford, Lee Remick, all top talents. James, Caan, Sammy Davis, and so much more. She also co-starred with Richard Chamberlin in the critically acclaimed independent film, 3 Days of Hamlet. Now, again, when you look at her extraordinary body of work, it is incredible. So many amazing performances in film, like Die, Die, My Darling. That was an amazing one as well. And of course, McClintock. That's another fantastic performance. Again, we're so honored to have an opportunity to just review some of the amazing things that she has done. And again, she's also involved in something very, very special and near and dear to her art and her heart, and that is involving nature and animals. And that's something we're going to talk about in just a second. This, of course, is the Magnificent Seven ride. And remember, Herbie rides again, whether it's dramatic, whether it's comedic, it is something that is near and dear to her heart, and she takes it on with grand style. Here's another one you may remember, Escape to Athena, and also with Sandra Day and John Gavin, Tammy, Tell Me True. The list goes on and on and on. So many incredible performances. Experiment, Terror is another one. A lot of you are probably going to go back in the archives now and watch a lot of these. Deceptions, and of course, another brilliant one, The Artist's Wife. She's extraordinary again, and she really is a pleasure to have an opportunity to chat with. In addition to everything that I just mentioned, which is the short list, she's appeared on television in so many incredible performances, but one of the ones other than Heart to Heart, which of course I know you guys want to hear a lot about. But do you remember, of course, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E.? That was a terrific one. And there's a wonderful story about how that came about. Also, she was with Harold Gould, another brilliant actor, in The Feather and Father Gang. And even It Takes a Thief back in 1977 with RJ, with Robert Wagner. And there's a little story about how that became or morphed into Heart to Heart in its own way. It's an amazing career. She's an extraordinary individual. And again, so many of you have been very, very excited to have an opportunity to hear from her, which we're going to do here on our show. As I mentioned, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. marked a milestone in the United States television history as the first hour-long series featuring a female in the leading role. And her television career is extraordinary, including over 25 miniseries, over 200 episodic guest starring appearances, 35 movies for television, 2 more television series, as I mentioned, Feather and Father, and the long-running Heart to Heart starring opposite extraordinary actor Robert Wagner. and celebrating his 45th anniversary as well. She's a member of the Screenwriters Guild of America. In the 1980s, has produced several of the screenplays she has written for as well. Family Secrets, not only stepping stone for the careers of James Spader and Gary Sinise, but it garnered her a nomination for the best screenplay of the year by her peers in the Writers Guild. And her writing has extended itself to her fabulous memoir, From One from the Heart, published by Robertson Press. Very excited to have an opportunity to show you that as well. You know, she also has a terrific CD out as well, and we're going to show you that during the course of our amazing conversation. There it is. It's amazing. We have this in our collection. And here is the latest, her fabulous memoirs, I just mentioned, One from the Heart. And we have this as well. And we've read this cover to cover, and it's a page turner, and it's a glorious and brilliant read, folks. And I encourage you to get that as well. Again, she's been doing this for quite some time. She's passionate. She loves what she does. And in addition to the work on television and in film, there's something else that is really near and dear to her heart, and we're so excited to have an opportunity to share it with you. And it is this. It is the William Holden Wildlife Education Foundation. It's the center. It is really something that she's been doing for a long time, the William Holden Wildlife Foundation. This is the beautiful center. She's right there in the gates, the entrance, and of course, the iconic actor, William Holden, a love in her life, and somebody also passionate, just like Stefanie Powers, about nature, about animals, about preservation. And I tell you, Stefanie gets right in the mix. She's been doing this for a long time. She absolutely loves animals. And she's an activist. She is an advocate. She is somebody who just really spends so much of her time making sure that this is front and center in all of our psyche. It's something I think absolutely beautiful that she takes. She's a very busy person, and I think it's so beautiful that she takes the time to continue this and do this amongst everything else that she does and all the work she's done on television, film, and stage, which is exemplary and award-winning. It's just truly an amazing thing. So with all of that said, and that's just the short list, folks, we thank you for watching. I really welcome in a beautiful way our very special guest. Joining us here again from her lovely home, Stefanie Powers is with us. Ms. Powers, welcome to the Jim Master Show. Truly an honor and a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, Jim, your introduction is very flattering, and my goodness, you certainly have done your homework. Excuse me, this is one of the 5 dogs which you might. There he is.
Who's that cutie we have there?
That's Sonny.
Hey, Sonny. You're on the Jim Master Show.
And there are 4 others. They're going to be running around, and they will be the background singers. You'll hear them barking. I
love that. And also sometimes there's a bird on your shoulder too, right? That's been around 50 years.
Yes, she's in the kitchen. She is my longest relationship with any living creature. 51 years.
Wow.
Who has been in my life? Can you imagine? Can you imagine having a pet, a relationship with this gorgeous green feathered magnificent bird who knows all my secrets and who can push all my buttons, and she for 51 years.
51 years.
I have to say that very quietly because she doesn't want me to tell her age.
She doesn't want to hear the 51. That's amazing. And again, that's just a testament to your love of animals and of nature, which I just sprinkled and teased a little bit in there for our audience. I think that's such a beautiful thing. You've been so busy and so profoundly involved in the entertainment industry and the arts. To incorporate this aspect of your life in such a beautiful and glowing way is a testament to your heart and soul and the compassionate and empathetic person you are, Stefanie.
Well, Jim, your adjectives are really very flattering. I actually, the formation of the William Holden Wildlife Foundation came after Bill's death. I spent the last 10 years of his life with him. And I wrote about it extensively in that book, which you so nicely showed, which I think is a fair, it's certainly a fair recount of the tragedy of his death, which was 2 weeks between Bill's death and the death of Natalie Wood, when
Yes.
Robert Wagner and I were working together doing Heart to Heart. It was obviously a very difficult and tragic period of time, but we held each other up, and I'm thrilled to know that we're still doing that as friends. I talk to RJ all the time. He's 94. He's going to have his 95th birthday in February. There we are.
You just
Yay!
spoke to him recently, and he's doing well.
Oh, he's great. He's
That's
here.
fantastic.
We see each other quite often. He comes to LA and goes to see his doctors and his friends and all of that. So he's a great one. He's still got a twinkle, and that
Yes.
is what made our relationship. I'm sure that was key to heart to heart chemistry.
Well, I
So
tell you,
let me just explain that
everybody loves that show and that series and you in it. I mean, people don't get enough of talking about it, but you've done so much more. When you look at your body of work, it is extraordinary. You almost forget about some of the things that you were in, that you were a part of. It's really incredible.
Well, I got into the industry, obviously, as you mentioned, at the sort of the twilight of the studio system. But even so, it was still functioning. And even when my contract was sold from Columbia Pictures to MGM to have me do The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., which I had no choice about, mind you, these were the days when you were a property, you were owned by the studio by virtue of your contract. So when I went to MGM, some of the iconic MGM wardrobe department and the set department, the props, were still intact. It was before it had all been sold off. And there were still some of the really important and original employees looking after all those fabulous costumes that Adrian designed for Greta Garbo. And every once in a while, this wonderful woman who was the head of the wardrobe department would tell me when they were going to take Adrian's designs for Greta Garbo out to air them and clean them, dust them off, and make sure that they were well preserved. And then I would go to the wardrobe department and I would have a look at these extraordinary drop-dead clothes that were made with such care.
Mm.
And the coloration, even though they were black and white movies, everything matched. Everything was impeccably designed. If you look at some of those, which many of the greatest directors of today really do regard those black and white early films as being the basic foundation of their understanding of storytelling and filmmaking. It's just delicious. It's a delicious part of our history as an industry, and is kept alive sometimes on Turner or
Yes.
in various places. And I highly recommend for everybody who likes the movies of today to look at the movies that created the template for the movies of today.
Early on for you, ballet was the real interest. And back then, you had an opportunity. This is fabulous. Natalie Wood and Jill St. John and you together in this photo. This is really glorious to see. Tell us about those early
The
years.
short one with the fat things. They were gorgeous. I mean, look at Natalie. She's on the far end. She never had an awkward time in her life. She was always gorgeous from the time she was a child until all through adulthood. And Jill also, who is, those were the two real wives of Robert Wagner. I was the TV wife.
It's amazing how all that came together. Each of you were a wife in a way of Robert Wagner. It's a small world, isn't it?
Well, that's what Hollywood was.
Yeah.
Hollywood was a very small community, and when I was growing up, and everybody kind of knew each other or sort of had something to do with each other. In this case, it was it was the premier ballet class that you would want to take your daughter to if you were if you either wanted, if they were interested in dancing, or you just wanted them to have, you know, grace and charm and good posture. So that was why we all wound up in that ballet class. That was kind of the foundation of another little ballet company, which I was part of. And I remained dancing until I was, I guess, about 14, 15, when I grew up very quickly and did the unmentionable, which was to have a chest. Ballet dancers don't have breasts. So I obviously was getting to be too tall and too chesty to be able to continue dancing ballet. But I was dancing at the American School of Dance, and I was learning how to move this kind of New York-based or classic-based jazz dancing. And because I had a friend who was a year older than I, and she had a driver's license and a car. And at the American School, they would post all of the auditions that were going to happen. I'm sorry about my dog. That's a new one. She just got rescued. So she, excuse me, let me just go.
Yeah,
sure. Here she comes. Maybe she'll come over here. You want to see her? There she
That's
is.
what it is.
There she is.
Want some screen time. There we go.
Big. She's bigger than, I don't know if I got.
Boy.
There she
Oh,
is.
wow. Hey.
Oh my God, that's Luna.
Wow.
Lunatic.
That's what you wanted, Stefanie's love. That's what all that barking was. Right now you're content and happy.
Oh, there she is. She was 2 days away from being executed.
Really?
Poor baby. You know, the executions, the euthanasia is going up so rapidly. No, don't bite that. She's only about a year old. So everything goes in the mouth. Oh my God, there you are.
That's the sweet spot. That's what want to be with Stefanie. You Ann Southern is instrumental early on for you as well, right? In the Ann Southern show, an opportunity there.
I was in school with her daughter in high school with her daughter, and Anne came to see the spring show at Hollywood High School, and which is where her daughter Tricia was also going to school. And I had a number in the spring show, which was Ado Annie's "I'm Just a Girl Who Can't Say No" from Oklahoma. And they I mean, it was a wonderful number because they put me in front of a line of boys. I mean, how bad could that be? And it's a wonderful number. It's a wonderful part. And so after the show, Anne came back to see her daughter, and she brought with her, she came to the show with a lovely man called Otto Lang, who was a great television and a director, and had directed a lot of the Ann Southern show. And they said, well, if you decide to take this up seriously, here's our number. Okay, that's enough.
You're also a great director.
Well, just temporarily. They'll go nuts again.
Yeah.
There are 5 of them, so it's quite a pack. Anyway, so I did, and that's where. Did you have a clip of that? Were you going to show a clip of that?
We don't have a clip of that, but we.
I would love to have a clip of that.
That would be great.
I think it was just 1 or 2 lines. I mean, it wasn't very much, but it was really. It was adorable of her, and then fade out, fade in, as the movie industry goes. Many years later, when I was doing The Girl from Uncle, Anne was one of the guest stars. So it all came. It all came full circle. Isn't that great? I mean, that was what it was like in the business in those days. You always knew that somehow it was going to come around again. And I was fortunate enough to be able to work with Anne. I mean, how fabulous. From high school to The Girl from Uncle. Really quite amazing.
How did The Girl from Uncle come your way? Another terrific one as well.
Well, it's a complicated story because it goes into the whole history of the movie business and how all the studios were divesting themselves of a lot of their contract players at that time because in 1948 the United States government deemed that all the studios were a monopoly because they made the product, they distributed the product, and they exhibited the product. Sort of like Apple.
Right.
Yes. So there are still monopolies going on that
Yeah.
the government is not doing anything about, but they did something to break up all the studios. So at that time, as I say, I started in the twilight of the studio system, and it was coming to its end when I was sold. As I said, they sold my contract to MGM in order for me to do The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. because they had wanted to borrow me, and the studio was starting to get rid of all of their contract players. Because of that, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. had the most extraordinary. We did 29 episodes, which is almost unheard of in television today. 29-hour episodes in one season, which is extraordinary. We were working very hard, but we also had such wonderful guest stars, and they were slightly older, so they were considered now character actors instead of leading players, and they were let go from the studios earlier. So we had Anne, we had Cesar Romero, we had Peggy Lee, we had, oh my goodness, we had such a fan. We also had Boris Karloff in drag in something called the Mother Muffin Affair. And so can you imagine how fabulous it was to be able to work with all of those iconic names?
Yeah.
And that was all because the studio system was collapsing and let all those people go.
That's incredible. Yet one of the incredible people you worked with was Tallulah Bankhead in My
Yes.
Guy, My Darling. And wow, that's a great shot. If you see it on your screen to the left there, it's she's sort of covering up the mouth there. It was a very riveting scene. What was it like working with that?
Being terrorized by Tallulah?
By Tallulah.
It was wonderful, actually.
Gets you all choked up thinking about it.
It was wonderful. We became friends, acquaintances, and I called her every time I was in New York. I would see her. She was an amazing woman. I mean, her story, her history, the fame for her wit, which was sharp, to say the least. And she had such an amazing career. This was the first film she had done in 20 years. And it was quite a story. So have to read the book for that one.
It's all in the book, folks. Absolutely. Make sure you get that book. Of course, McClintock working with Maureen O'Hara. That's another. She's fantastic. What was it like that? And of course, John Wayne as well.
Well, I actually, once again, I knew all the children of the people. So I knew Maureen's daughter, Browen. And I met Maureen actually because Browen invited me to come to meet the sons of Maureen's boyfriend from Mexico, and they were in Los Angeles, and so Brown and I were their dates to go out around the city and have dinner or go to places wherever it was happening for us in those days. We were all teenagers. So I met Maureen way before I was cast as the daughter of Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne. The interesting thing and the sad thing is that I'm very close with Patrick Wayne. I still see Patrick. In fact, we're having dinner this week. And the terrible, sad thing is that I was looking at a photograph of the entire cast of McClintock, and Patrick and I are the only ones left alive. Yeah, it's sad to lose all of these extraordinary people because there were stuntmen and Indians, John Ford Indians, and brilliant, brilliant actors that were in that movie. And everybody's gone except us. So we have to take care of each other.
You've got to take care of each other. The
Yes.
Magnificent Seven ride was another, an MGM classic, another fantastic one. I mean, whether it's comedic or dramatic, you just really are so brilliant at everything.
I did a lot of Westerns, and I love horses. So
Yes.
I was raised, my stepfather bred racehorses, so I was raised around horses. And okay, children. Enough.
They love you, Stefanie. They love you.
Excuse me.
Yes. Welcome, everybody. Stefanie Powers is our special guest. I'm your host, Jim Masters, talking about some of the iconic movies and so much more that she's been a part of, stage and theatrical roots too, appearing in productions of How the Other Half Loves, Under the Yum Yum Tree, The Sabrina Fair, View from the Bridge, Oliver, and Get Your Gun, the West End debut of Matador, Off-Broadway, The Regina Monologues. So much.
Yes, and in England, I did several musicals, but and quite a few plays. I took The King and I on after the West End. I took The King and I on tour in the United States and for 10 months, and we waltzed all over the United States and in Canada.
You know, you did. And I think what's really amazing about some of this is, do you have a preference to film, television, stage, or do you just love it all? What comes first for you, if anything comes first, Stefanie?
Well, I love the musical theater, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's very demanding. And the last musical I did was called Gotta Dance, and it was meant for Broadway, but we did our out-of-town opening in Chicago, and it didn't rise to the occasion that it should have. So unfortunately, after 8 weeks in Chicago, we did not go to Broadway. It's a very demanding thing. There's a reason why not a lot of people do it anymore. 8 shows a week. You have to sort of gird your loins, and it's really rather taxing. The theater in general is rather taxing. So in England, I truly enjoy performing in England because we can do these short runs of 3 months in plays and not in musicals, but in plays.
You know, another one that you were extraordinary in was Looped, and that people love that. Yes.
Well, I took over from Valerie.
Right.
Both of us knew each other. We had both. Oh, that's me. Yes, there's me as Tallulah.
Yes.
See a resemblance?
Yes. Incredible, huh? It's amazing that you were doing that, having worked with her way before, huh? What goes around comes around.
Well,
extraordinary.
The play is actually about, it's called Looped because that's what looping sessions are about, sort of dubbing a piece of dialogue or something that comes from a movie that you're doing in, and the sound isn't very good on, and so they need to have what they call a looping session where you dub your own voice. And the story of the play is Tallulah dubbing a line of dialogue from Die, Die, My Darling, which was called The Fanatic in England. You know, movies used to have a different name in Europe than they have in the United States. So because she was known for saying darling all the time, they called it Die, Die, My Darling in the United States. But it's about this one episode where she showed up 4 hours late, having been overserved, I think you can say, and that's what the show is about. So it was unfortunately Valerie her cancer had moved to her brain, and she asked me. I was on the road doing another show that was about to close, and in England, and she called me and told me that she and her husband had committed to doing 5 weeks on the road with their own money, and that she had to go into treatment, and that if they couldn't find a replacement, they were going to lose a lot of money. So she asked me if I would do it. And I immediately said yes, not realizing that I would have 6 days rehearsal before we opened in Florida.
Wow.
Yes, we did. I must say that it was there was one other person in the cast. Every once in a while, I'd obviously skip a page of dialogue or something like that, and I'd see in his eyes going, not knowing what to do. And then we'd recover. But obviously, I got to know the show very quickly.
That's extraordinary. Prior to Heart, which everybody, of course, loves and remembers you from, you were in 1970 with Robert Wagner in It Takes a Thief. And that was sort of a little bit of a precursor to Heart, right?
Isn't that interesting? I've never seen that photograph. I love that photograph. That's great.
That's a terrific one. Yeah.
I love that picture. That's great. So it was 1970, was it?
Yes.
Oh. Right. Well, it was a little bit because of that, and also because as I said, once again, the town was very small. I knew Aaron Spelling and Leonard Goldberg many years before. Aaron Spelling was the coach of, there used to be softball teams in Hollywood. Boys softball league and a girls softball league, and Aaron Spelling was our coach for the girls softball team that I played on. So I knew Aaron, and then his career, and he was married to Carolyn Jones at that time. And later on, I worked with Carolyn Jones. So you see, that was a very, very small,
incredible
that we all lived in. But so I received a phone call. We were opening in San Francisco in a production of Cyrano de Bergerac. Stacy Keach was Cyrano and I was Roxanne. And just as before we opened, and then we were going to Broadway, I got a phone call from Robert Wagner and Aaron Spelling and Tom Mankiewicz, who was a great friend of mine growing up, and a wonderful friend of Robert Wagner's and Natalie Wood's, and Tom was an incredibly talented writer. He was a script doctor, and he had created, really more responsible for a lot of those fabulous lines that Roger Moore said when he played James Bond, and Tom rewrote the original script of Superman, which wound up being the one you saw, the first Superman. So he was very talented. We all knew him. We all loved him. And we knew that he came from a legacy. His father was Joe Mankiewicz, the great writer-director. His uncle was Herman Mankiewicz, who wrote the screenplay for Citizen Kane, Just a Little Picture. And so it was in his blood, And we all knew that Tom was a sort of reluctant debutante when it came to directing a movie. So the condition was that Tom was going to rewrite the script for the pilot, and then he was going to direct it. And would I be? RJ was on the phone as well, Robert Wagner, and they wanted me to play Robert Wagner's wife because we had such a nice rapport when we worked together before, but also knew each other. And I was in the middle of this play, so what was I going to do? I couldn't walk out, and the idea that we might be going to Broadway was also too good to be true. So what happened was that Aaron Spelling understood that there was going to be a writer's strike, a newspaper strike in New York. And traditionally, whenever there was a newspaper strike in New York, nothing would come into town. So Broadway was pretty much dead because they had no way to publicize anything that was on. Well, all I can say, Jim, is it was the greatest, most wonderful newspaper strike that I'd ever hoped to be involved with, because as a result of that newspaper strike, we didn't go into New York with Cyrano, and I could do the pilot of Heart to Heart. Ta-da!
Wow.
Right.
That was incredible, huh? And of course, that lasted for such a long time. And, you and Robert Wagner played off each other so beautifully. It was so believable. People would assume that you were a married couple just in how brilliantly you both took on those roles.
We were very lucky, I think, because it just happened at the right time in our lives. It was the right chemistry for everybody. And neither one of us could have predicted that we were going to have this kind of rapport that just seemed to, it was like a tennis game. He hit the ball to me, I hit the ball back. And nobody could really predict that.
Exactly. Yeah. What was it like, when you got those scripts? Because the storylines were really fantastic, and you took us on a journey every
Well, we
single week.
also did a lot of we had script meetings every lunch hour, and because we were in every shot, we really had very little time for anything else. Either lunch hour was something to do with publicity, or something to do with a wardrobe, or something to do with the script. So we had a lot of input into the shows, and certainly into what we would call the heart-to-heart scenes between the two of us. So a lot of it was improvised.
Sometimes when people are on a series that becomes such a hit and so beloved as Heart to Heart, um, they'll get typecast, or they'll only be thought of in that role. And sometimes they'll go away from that role and not even address it. But you've
Uh-huh.
been very good at appreciating the series, the role, and the love that fans and aficionados of the series continue to have for it.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you. I've been very, very lucky because, yes, indeed, once someone is known for certain things, it's a blessing, and it's also kind of slightly a curse, because it's very hard for women, to be able to do character roles, to change their persona and be able to do it. And that's really why we all got into acting in the first place, and not to play ourselves, but to play a character. So I was able to somewhat change by playing in the theater, by playing Tallulah, as you saw. I also did a 4-hour miniseries about at Mother's Request, which was about a murder, and about a murderess, or a woman who coerced her son into the murder of her father. And I also tried to change as much as possible my appearance. And then, of course, in Mistral's Daughter, they were very. I'm playing a French woman. I speak French, and the network would say, "Oh, well, the accent, it doesn't sound like her." Well, it wasn't supposed to sound like her. It was supposed to sound like a young French woman. And so there were always these battles.
Mm.
Then I played an English woman in The Life of Beryl Markham, who was the first
Mhm.
person to fly the Atlantic going west. And she was an English rose with a very tough interior. And once again, there was a little bit of a complaint that didn't sound like or look like myself. One wasn't supposed to look like themselves. So there's always been that problem. Meryl Streep sort of broke a lot of that, but where they are, it's possible and it's acceptable when she does it. It doesn't seem to be acceptable when a lot of other people do it.
Exactly. You mentioned the wonderful Valerie Harper, and the two of you, through just being brilliant and talented and very compassionate and very giving actors, actresses, performers, lover of the craft, you also found a bond through your own health situations, which you've been very open about. And of course, Valerie took us on the ride as well. And I think that was so beautiful. How did that friendship sort of develop as a result of pretty much supporting each other through similar situations.
Well, we didn't plan it that way. We didn't hope for that to happen. We knew each other. Valerie was very active in the union, the Screen Actors Guild, and as it happened, we both wound up with lung cancer at the same time. I think 4 days apart, we had our surgeries with the same doctor, same hospital, same ward, same everything. And we would go through our post-operative treatments at the same place. So we would run into each other. And that kind of created a little bit more of a bond.
How are you doing today?
Thank God, I never say that anyone who's ever had cancer will understand this. Cancer cells are going around in our body the whole time. Our immune system fights them off, and hopefully our immune system can remain strong. But it has to, for we who call ourselves cancer survivors, are continually surviving cancer. And there are wonderful support groups. There are wonderful people who help you understand how to live with cancer and what's available. And that is something that we all need to share. Yeah. There is the medical profession, but the doctors are not the patients.
Right.
So they can only tell you certain things about how to live with cancer. And you can get a great deal more information from those fellow survivors. I like to call us survivors because that's what we're doing. But aren't we doing that in general? Everybody, every day, in every way, is surviving. So we're just surviving the trials that we've been presented with, and we have to all understand each other and understand that there are certain constancies. We are surviving. We go to sleep every day and we wake up in the morning being a day older. So rather than separate ourselves from the aging process, we should grow to understand it and accept it a bit more than we are doing it now. We're all looking for the fountain of youth as it's maintaining something to do with some falsified youth is a desirable state of affairs. I don't think it is. I think I believe in the passage of time, and the lessons one learns are the substance that you create as your character as a human being.
Beautifully said. That is so touching and beautifully said. I hosted a show for many years with the American Cancer Society and had an opportunity to learn so much from seniors all the way to the kids that were dealing with it. And to hear your words is so inspiring, to see somebody that so many people admire, revere, and look up to, and be so open and so empathetic and compassionate about it. It's really a beautiful thing you're doing, Stefanie, and I wish you nothing but continued blessing and good health. Absolutely. Something else I mentioned in the introduction, and again, there's so many things that we could focus on. It would take days, like a mini series, a Stefanie Powers mini series. But one of the things that is near and dear to your heart, of course, is continuing this wonderful work of the beloved William Holden and this fabulous center and the foundation. Tell us about how all of this started, because this is something that really, I think,
well, I want to tell you before we run out of time.
It's so beautiful.
It's a long story, but it is. I think it's interesting and worthwhile. So Bill went out to Kenya in the mid 1950s. Before anybody was really concerned about the numbers of game reducing, people were still hunting. But it was also at a period of time when the freedom fighters, the Mau Mau, were in the mountains, and so what they were calling the emergency was on. And there wasn't, we have to remember, mass tourism didn't start until more or less the end of the 1970s. So people who traveled in those days were few and far between, and usually had enough money to be able to indulge themselves, because it was quite expensive to go after the kind of trophy animals that the hunters were interested in. So it was called the Big Five: elephant, rhino, lion, leopard, and buffalo. Well, they were after some of those trophy animals, and it took about 2 months for them to actually complete their safari, but there were 3 of them. But in the course of that period of time, the camp would have to be moved to several different places. And every time the camp was moved, the clients would have to go somewhere and repair. And in this case, they went to an upcountry inn, which had been a house, which had been turned into a nice, lovely auberge or inn. And because of the emergency, there was nobody there, and the owners of the inn wanted to sell it. Every time they'd go back there, they kept saying, "Oh my God, this is so wonderful. We really should buy this place." And finally, they did it. Oh, excuse me, before these dogs destroy my door.
Yeah.
My God. Oh, yes, you are.
Amazing stories, right, everybody? Yeah.
So they bought this inn, and they turned it into the Mount Kenya Safari Club, which was kind of the jewel in the crown of destinations when you went to visit East Africa. You can see that.
Yeah. They love you, Stefanie. They love you.
So eventually, Bill had an idea, and he wound up buying the 2,000 acres surrounding the club to turn it into the first ever game ranch for the preservation of species. Now, in those days, the word conservation wasn't even in people's vocabulary. This is 1959.
Right.
And let alone the idea of extinction, let alone any of the things that were to come. So Bill was a visionary as far as conservation was concerned, and he created the Mount Kenya Game Ranch specifically for the preservation of species. At its height, it had 37 species of East African wildlife, 5 of which are no longer visible in the wild. The one thing Bill always wanted to do was to build a wildlife education center, so the local people, specifically for local people, could come and learn about their iconic wildlife, but also about biodiversity and the reason for preserving forests and flora and fauna, and making it open exclusively to young Kenyans and to Kenyan citizens who didn't have a chance to turn on a TV and see National Geographics to learn about their own wildlife and their own natural habitat. So after Bill died, he was unable to complete this idea of his. So I formed the William Holden Wildlife Foundation in order to construct the Wildlife Education Center that Bill had wanted to do but didn't live to see. The mission statement of the Education Center is wildlife conservation through education and alternatives to habitat destruction. So we have been serving for free, thanks to our donors. We are a 501c3 public charity in the United States. You can find us at whwf.org.
There it is, right there on the screen for you. Yeah.
There it is.
Yes, definitely donate and support. Absolutely, folks.
But the capacity has grown, and now we have, for the last, oh my goodness, at least 20 years, because we got our IRS status in 1982. So we've been doing this a long time. We are serving 11,000 students a year in our main education center, and we have an outreach program into rural areas in the bush with very poor communities. And that numbers another 6,000 people. So we are rather busy. And the second half of our mission statement is our new focus, which we've been focusing on now for the last 5 years, which is a wildlife education, in addition to the Wildlife Education Center, it's a laboratory where we'll be able to show what biodiversity is when you associate it with the regeneration of soil. Habitat, of course, is the most important thing for all of biodiversity, and especially for the kind of flora that produces the climate we have on this planet. Because we have overexploited so much of the green belt on this planet and rendered it sometimes unusable because of having over-chemicalized it or over-exploited it, as in the case of the Amazon, we are now facing serious problems that we can no longer ignore. Everybody's been ignoring it ever since everybody first started talking about it, and thinking that somebody else is doing something about it. But in fact, we are the ones who have to do something about it. So the effort of trying to adjust the form of agriculture from being what we've known it to be for so long, which is the overuse of chemicals. Okay, kids. And the fact that much of the land is left uncovered, and after the period of time that you harvest, and in between the period of time that the ground is covered again with crops, when you have soil which is open to the air and uncovered, all you have is carbon reaching into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So we combine regenerative soil, which is the basis of all good agriculture, with a form of agriculture which fully covers the land, fully covers the small farms that we deal with. We're specifically focused on small landholders in rural areas. Our audience doesn't have more than an acre or 10 acres of land, which they use as subsistence farming. But they are the majority of farmers in these developing countries, which need more than anything else. They need to know how to keep those what little land they have productive, so they can feed themselves, their families, and have something to barter or trade. That is our focus with this second half of our mission statement. We have developed protocols that are able to turn around land from over-chemicalized, unusable soil to regenerated soil and productive in one growing season. The study of that protocol is now going to attract, and is attracting, because we have 7 projects that we are currently using as the criteria for this protocol, and we're going to be welcoming some master's degree students and some PhD students to do their thesis on our technique, in an effort to be able to establish a protocol that is acceptable as the foundation of regenerative farming. So that's just our little job. That's what I do in my spare time.
That is, and you've been recognized in so many different ways, and you receive so much fanfare as a result of it. The global partnership.
Yes, we just had a lovely lunch at the UN.
Yes, that's the Global Partnerships Forum and the Permanent Mission of Monaco to the United Nations, honoring you and the William Holden Wildlife Foundation at the 2024 Agents of Change Awards luncheon. Congratulations, well deserved. And what was that like? That must have been an extraordinary.
Well, it's the Agents of Change and the Vision for the Future. The Vision for the Future is an ebook, and it highlights the work of about 25 people. I am one of them, for which I am extremely grateful, because it highlights all the work of all of these 25 people and brings that to the public, brings that to hopefully a world that may be interested in any one of these projects, join or use it to inspire their own work. That's very important, that we all embrace something that we feel passionate about. And in presenting this ebook, which is free of charge, you can find it on the internet, Vision for the Future, and it's available to anybody and everybody who wishes to read it and find for yourself a passionate endeavor that you might like to either participate with or start your own, or find a place where you can also give of yourself, of your assets, and of your spirituality, because we understand that it is greater to give than receive. We know that if you listen to most of the greatest thinkers in the world, it's only when they got to a point where they understood where their niche was in order to give back all of the wonderful opportunities they've been availed of, to be able to also share and change things. So that's why this award was called A Vision for Change. And I hope that it will interest some of your listeners and watchers to log on to it and look at some of the work of some of these extraordinary people, and maybe be interested in some of the work we do.
It's extraordinary. It really is. And congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Also, congratulations on several books, including the latest, this one here. I got to say, I absolutely love that photo of you. You look so happy and like just so full of life. For anybody who's a super fan and they're going to get this book, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble. What inspired you to write the memoir, One from the Heart? And congratulations on it.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for reading it. It was inspired by some changes in my life, not the least of which was the loss of my mother, whom lived with me and we had a very close relationship. She was 97, and
God bless her.
At the same time, I was diagnosed with my first cancer. I've had cancer 4 times, so I am definitely surviving. And there was, I'm a very private person, so I was, approached several times to write a book, and I guess they just caught me at the right time. So Simon & Schuster published it in the United States, and I wrote it 9 months. I finished writing it 9 months after my mom had died and I had been diagnosed, and I wanted to do it within that period of time because that was kind of the motivation for even sharing any of the story.
You also have graced us with your beautiful voice too on the same page. Do you enjoy doing that? Do you enjoy singing and performing in that way too? And I encourage folks to get this as well. This is amazing.
Thank you. Well, yes, of course, I love to sing, but it's very, very difficult to go on the road and sing these days because there aren't so many venues as there used to be, sadly, for cabaret. And it was inspired once again by a very good friend who financed it, who was a great musicologist, and by Paige Cavanaugh, the ability to work with Paige Cavanaugh, who was a master of arrangement and piano, and himself such a brilliant musician. He performed and did a lot of arrangements for Doris Day.
That's right.
Many, many years, and he had the Paige Cavanaugh Trio. So that was all, that came together as another passion project.
I think everything you've done has had passion in it as well. What would Stefanie of today say to that young girl full of promise and wide-eyed and curious? What would she say to that Stefanie now?
Oh gosh, fix your hair. No. Cut your hair.
Did I mention she's also funny, folks? Quick wit. What would you say to that? Yeah, that 15, 16-year-old version of Stefanie.
Well, that was about a 6 or 7-year-old version.
That's the younger, yeah.
the younger girl. Well, it was all a great adventure in the beginning, and of course, once it got serious, and I was attending classes with extraordinary teachers, it was obvious that that was going to be. I was going to attempt to make this my career,
Yeah.
and I tried to pursue it with a view for it to be a long-term enterprise. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to have sort of accomplished that.
And
Luck, I must say, it's luck, because today it's kind of an ephemeral industry. You know, there's so many choices and so many talented people. Sometimes you never see them again after they've been on one streaming show or another, because there's so many choices, and so people are instantaneously replaced. So I guess I have to also be very lucky, very, very grateful that I was performing at this during the period of time that I began my career and continued my career, because it was before everything changed.
So many incredible performances. Herbie Rides Again as well. We can't forget that. Again, you've got to, folks, go into the Stefanie Powers repertoire, not just, of course, the iconic Heart to Heart, which you can spend hours enjoying that fabulous series, Robert Wagner as well. But, you know, in addition to being surrounded by nature and lots of love you have circling the room there, I did a little digging, and I believe you also, there's an affinity for ducks in the swimming pool. In the pool. I mean, she's got nature all around her, everybody.
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, the ducks arrived.
Yeah.
The ducks arrived quite by accident. They seem to have known exactly where to go.
Where to go.
Because
of all the neighbors, they got to go to the Powers household. Yes.
Were walking across the street in front of my house. They must have been, the ducklings were just about this big, and there's a lot of construction going on. So there were big trucks and things going by. I pulled out of my driveway, and one of the workers from was standing in the middle of the road trying to hold traffic. And I said to him, "What's going on?" And I got out of the car and I said, "What's going on?" And he showed me this mother duck with these 7 little ducklings this big, which couldn't have been more than a couple of days old. And I said, all right, look, I'm going to open my gate and we'll walk them in there, and then I'll close the gate and they'll be safe inside the area. And then, so what happened? So we walked them across the street. We got them safely into this auto court area that I have, closed the gate. I came around on the pedestrian gate into that, and I called my housekeeper, Olga, and I told her that they were out here, and we opened the gate so they could at least go back to, on the side of my house, back all the way to the back area of the house where there was a swimming pool. And I thought, I don't know what I was thinking, but they not only knew exactly where the swimming pool is. I do have a video that Olga took of them marching back, and with such determination, the mother knew exactly where to go to the pool. And that is where they lived for the next 5 months.
Wow.
Wow. I must tell you, the saga of the ducks was an extremely interesting one. I mean, the dogs were relegated to, couldn't go to that part of the property. They had to go to a different part of the property for all of their activities. And I did, because the ducks would go into the swimming pool, I did allow them to go back to look at them and know that there was only one of my 5 dogs that has the killer instinct. I never let her back there, but eventually they flew away. And then I was left with the most disgusting swimming pool you have ever seen. So the only question I have is now, they had such a good time. I even got special food for the ducklings. Did the word go out? Are they going to come back next year? I hope not. I hope they because whoa, I don't know what we can do now with all of these dogs. There
Yeah.
were 4 dogs last year, this year, but I must say that I did during this entire period of time. I was, my people who think it's very funny to post everything that's amusing. They posted all of this, the duck report, and I went to a very serious meeting. And I walked in. One of the people met me in the lobby of this building, this office building, and said, as we were walking to the meeting room, he said, "Well, I have you to thank for uh, what my son's in passion is now, and he's been bothering me ever since he saw your website." And I said, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And he said, "The ducks. What he wants now are ducks in the backyard. When do we get ducks, Daddy?" So, oh my God, I'm now going to be known as the duck lady.
The
Okay.
duck lady, right? That is so funny, I tell you. Look, so many incredible performances, so many things you've been in that are just, again, folks, you got to go into the archives and take a look at so many things that she's done.
Wow, where did you get all these?
Skyway to Death. I mean, she's done
Wow,
drama, she's done comedy, she's done
amazing.
it all. And
Whoever did
just,
your homework, all these things. Oh my goodness, look at that.
it's
Wow.
amazing. Isn't it amazing when you look back at it all and you're like, and of course, Maggie, CBS, that another fantastic. Yeah, so much. And we love you. And this really is an honor and a pleasure. Someone's watching. Well, in this case, the ducks are watching at her house. uh, you are a blessing. You are a treasure. And this really was a phenomenal conversation. Again,
Thank you.
we don't script it. It's free flowing. It's warm. It's kind of like the old school talk shows, bringing back the lost art of conversation. And I really appreciate your generosity of time, your wit and wisdom, all that you have given us in terms of yourself through television and stage and film, and continue to do, as well as preserving wildlife and celebrating nature in the way that you do as well. Stefanie, you really are a treasure. I hope you'll come see us again. And I hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
I have very much, Jim. And once again, I thank you for your copious research. And those visuals are phenomenal. They're just great. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been lovely.
The pleasure is all mine. You be well. Best of the holidays to you and the family, Stefanie, and come see us again. You're always welcome here.
Thanks, Jim, and happy holidays to you.
You too as well. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
The incomparable Stefanie Powers joining us here on the show. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Going back in time, taking a look at some of the extraordinary work, and of all, talking about some new things too, and some things she's so passionate about. But like I said, she is somebody who has been passionate her entire life, and she gives so much back. We're taking a look at some really interesting shots here, but she gives so much back. And I love talking about the William Holden Foundation, that fabulous foundation that she's involved in and has been for years. That's such a beautiful thing. The Wildlife Foundation, keeping that alive. Taking a look at this too. She was with Sandra Dee, and I know you love seeing some of these too. Experiment Terror. You probably even forgot about some of the amazing things that Ms. Powers has been a part of. The Artist's Wife, which is another brilliant one as well. And the book. Make sure you pick up a copy of the book. She gave us a little bit of it, the inspiration for it as well. The music, you might not even realize that she has this out as well on the same page. And just talking about some of the memories and the extraordinary people that she's had an opportunity to work with over the years as well. She really is a very passionate, spirited, super talent. And it really was an extraordinary opportunity to spend this time with her here on our show. We thank Miss Stefanie Powers she's very, very busy. So for her to take this time with us like this and be so generous and so real and authentic, it's wonderful too. There are people that you meet and you wonder when you see them on television and in film or on stage, are they really like what I see, what I hope? Yes, she is. She's a straight shooter. She's the real deal. So if you're wondering when you saw her on Heart to Heart and all these series and shows, is she really? She is. I say there's few people you'll come across, I would say, knowing Carol Burnett, she's the same way. Florence Henderson, dear Florence Henderson, who was a dear friend, she was the same way. There are people out there who they match, if not exceed, what you see on the screen. So I know many of you are very happy watching this, commenting and celebrating this episode of our Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. And you're happy to know that Ms. Stefanie Powers is exactly the real deal. And she is. I want to show you the website again as well for the foundation. You can donate, you can support, you can celebrate. I think it's a glorious thing to do. So I wholeheartedly encourage you to do that as well. And I hope you, watching all around the world as you do, enjoyed your time with us here. As we always say, don't forget to love one another, take care of one another, and don't forget to take time for yourself and love yourself. It's really important to do that. This is your host, Jim Masters, thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, if you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to give it a like. It is archived on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, where there's over 1,200 episodes with celebrity friends and guests who've been with us. Give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. And also leave a comment if you enjoyed this episode with Stefanie Powers. Share some of your memories of your favorite performances of Stefanie, whether it's on television and film or on stage, the books, music, whatever it may be. We love hearing from you. So again, thanks to Ms. Stefanie Powers for gracing us with her fabulous presence, and for all of you for watching and enjoying. Spread the word about our show and come see us again on the Jim Masters Show. We love you all. Take care, be well, and cheers.